Well, it's finally happened. Today, a Labour MP went on national television and openly called for Sir Keir Starmer to go.
Would you give up your seat
It's
for
a
him?
question I've asked myself, and I'd have to obviously consult with my wife as well and family. But you know what? If I'm going to sit here and say, country before party, party before personal ambition, then yes, I have to say yes, don't I?
You give up your seat for Andy Burnham?
I would, yeah.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it. Yeah, there he is, saying he'd give up his seat for Andy Burnham so he could challenge Sir Keir Starmer. It's going to take about 80 Labour MPs to call for Sir Keir Starmer to go in order to trigger a leadership contest. And today, they say they've hit that number. The only problem for them, of course, is that they can't decide on who should actually replace him. Today it's reported that Lisa Nandy, the Culture, Media and Sports Secretary, Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader, and Louise Haigh, the former Transport Minister who resigned amid a fraud scandal, are all being touted. Bit of a rogues gallery, that, isn't it? Well, we all know that Wes Streeting is on manoeuvres. Today he announced the men's health strategy, which is actually, to be fair, a very good thing.
Wes, in a hard hat, what are you doing here?
This is not my Village People tribute act, and I'm not about to do the YMCA. We are launching the first ever men's health strategy in our country's history.
Shabana Mahmood did her big audition a couple of days ago.
We must act too. We will do so by making refugee status temporary, not permanent. A grant of refugee status will last 2.5 years, not 5.
Right, let's have a little look at the polls, shall we? So Labour are currently predicted to come 4th at the general election. By the way, the Tories are predicted to come 6th. Labour would lose 351 seats. Reform would win the election. Starmer himself is about as toxic as Novichok. 72% of the public view him unfavourably. He is the least popular Prime Minister since records began, and only a third of actual Labour voters think he should lead them into the next election. The problem is that he just doesn't stand for anything. Just today, there were protests from Jeremy Corbyn in the hard left about his new illegal immigration rules.
Recognise the strength of a multicultural, multilingual, multi-ethnic society and stand up against Islamophobia, stand up against anti-Semitism, stand up against any form of racism.
The Labour Party is racist.
The Labour Party is racist, they keep shouting. Gosh, he's presided over more U-turns than a drunk driver during a police chase, and economically, he is a disaster. A few days ago, Rachel Reeves called an entire press conference just to roll the wicket for raising income tax.
Mine will be a budget for growth, with fairness at its heart, and a budget that supports businesses to create jobs and to innovate. As I take my decisions on both tax and spend, I will do what is necessary to protect families from high inflation and interest rates, to protect our public services from a return to austerity, and to ensure that the economy that we hand down to future generations is secure, with debt under control.
The whole point of that speech, and doing it 2 weeks or so before the budget, was singularly to roll the wicket for those income tax rises. And then today we're told that isn't happening. Well, it's chaos. I mean, he's never here, really, is he, Sir Keir Starmer? He's on course for 25 foreign trips this year. I don't think there's even or ever been a worse Prime Minister at a worse time for Britain. Look, the budget is this time next week. It is now when, not if, Sir Keir Starmer is sent packing. Although the good news for him, of course, is that he can just move back into Lord Ali's penthouse when that happens. Every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got Director of Public Services Mark Littlewood. We've also got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Right, well, Mark, so today the first Labour MP openly went over the top, said he should go, and he'd even quit his own seat so that Andy Burnham could stand against him. 80 MPs are apparently there now, ready to trigger a leadership contest. When's it going to happen?
Good question. I think there are 2 points of obvious danger for Keir Starmer when the rebels would choose to strike. One is how badly does the budget go down? We know it's going to go down badly, but somewhere on the spectrum between utterly horrific and completely disastrous, where's it need to be there the day afterwards, the day after that? What's public reaction to it? If that's a horror show, they might decide to move before Christmas. Then you've got, looking forward to next May, local elections and the Scottish and Welsh elections, likely to be a complete evisceration of the Labour Party. That might be the point at which they move. Here's the thing, though, Patrick, you were quite right to point out the complete chaos of this government. What the rebels need to brace themselves for, though, is if they trigger a leadership election, they will be inviting several weeks of chaos, depending on how long the Labour Party take to conclude that election before a new Prime Minister's selected. But I would have thought he will probably cling on to Christmas, but I don't think that's certain. And it's very likely he'll be removed next year, probably in the wake of disastrous May elections. And the rebels will just continue to grow, build, work out who their candidate is. And this could be another 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, but it's going to get pretty toxic pretty quick, if it isn't already actually really for Sir Keir Starmer. You know, seeing Clive Lewis there out and about saying that he would actually give up his own seat. If he's willing to say that on or you know, openly on national television, and there's 80 MPs supposedly behind the scenes who've now decided to pull the trigger, I mean, there's potentially hundreds more who are just not saying it out loud. He's gone, hasn't he?
I think Labour is imploding from within. The far-left factions and all the different factions within that party, it's a mess. What worries me is who do we get next? You know, do we get Angela Rayner, who is a lot further left? Do we maybe get Wes Streeting, who for me is probably the least dangerous option within Labour? But is he going to be able to get the backing of the trade unions and the Labour membership? You know, we could end up with someone like Ed Miliband as the Prime Minister of this country. Now, his Twitter and his social media videos, he doesn't look all the ticket to me. The thought of having that man lead this country...
Well, he also stood for election once. You see, this is it. He did actually stand for election and he got an absolute kicking.
Yeah.
So why do it again? You know, this is the thing.
And the list that is being put out there, Louise Haigh, Lucy Powell, Lisa Nandy. Louise Haigh was, I believe, she pleaded guilty to a fraud conviction a long time ago. That wouldn't be a very good idea to put her up. Lucy Powell, her comments, the dog whistle comments on the grooming gangs, there's a lot of people left and right that are very angry with those comments.
Lisa Nandy also, go on.
Lisa Nandy, but her views on the trans athletes and the trans movement just infuriates many as well. I've got to say, the Labour Party terrifies me, and so do many of these, but Wes Streeting is probably my pick.
Well, it's a shame for Wes Streeting that he's going to lose his seat at the next general election, because he's only got a majority of a couple of hundred, I think, and those polls have shifted even more against him. Is this showing now that actually Sir Keir Starmer really is the best they've got, and they are, frankly, a completely hopeless bunch?
No, I don't think Keir Starmer is the best. I've said forever Wes Streeting is the guy that I would...
He's going to have to move seat there, Nina. This is the thing. He's going to have to do an embarrassing chicken run.
Whatever.
And do what Angela Rayner did and move to Hove.
Well, whatever. But he is the one man that I would choose. But having said that, I heard somebody who's very, very close to Labour talking today on Times Radio and saying that Keir Starmer is very, very... aggressive, very confident, and he thinks that he can turn this around.
Right.
Delusional.
So don't.
Okay.
So you don't need to write him off just yet.
But didn't they lose 4 points today in the latest Ipsos poll, Mark? I mean, they are in
the polls are shocking.
They're free fall.
And it, I mean, I can't see. You wouldn't just need a black swan event to turn this around. You would need a flock of black swans to turn this around. If you look on the horizon, you would think that things are likely to get worse for Keir Starmer, not better. And he's already at the lowest ebb imaginable. No Prime Minister has fallen this low in public opinion, and nobody has turned anything around from obviously this low, because nobody's fallen this low. It would be a Lazarus-style comeback if he were to pull it off. And he doesn't seem to have any of the instincts, any of the mechanisms, or any of the upcoming likely events to turn things around.
The thing is, you have to think of what's going to happen to the markets, because that is going to be such turmoil if this happened, and you have to keep the market steady, because it's a very fragile situation. And the other thing to say in Keir Starmer's favour is that he has been amazing internationally. You joke and laugh about how many trips abroad, but he has brought Britain to a different standing in the world.
But what's the evidence for that? Because the Russians are currently firing lasers at RAF pilots. The Chinese are openly threatening us because we've dared to point out all of their spying. I mean, the Americans behind the scenes, not Trump, but the Americans behind the scenes really do not like him at all. Macron mugged him off royally when he came over here and told him how to fix the migrant crisis and all of that.
And Macron has applauded today with Mahmoud's policy.
Right.
So, Starmer has...
It's not what he went out to with the French.
He's got a decent relationship with Trump. None of us can understand why, but he does.
It's voters that put them there. And look, I speak to the working man and the working woman, and I've yet to find someone in real life that likes Keir Starmer. He has no personality. He's like a robot.
We know that.
He's branded us all far right for being anti-immigration, even though I think it's 70% in the polls want immigration step back. And it's the way they lie, U-turn, and treat us like mugs, really.
The stone cold facts, this is why Labour MPs will be panicking. They won the last election, yes, with a landslide majority, but with the lowest share of the vote of any winning party in our lifetimes.
It was shallow, wasn't it?
34% of the vote. And they've lost about half of that since. About half of the people who voted Labour, who won, but not with an heroic number, about half of those people have deserted them. I mean, they aren't just headed to lose the next election, they are heading to be wiped out. And if you are one of the 400 Labour MPs whose job and political future depends on the Labour Party doing acceptably well, it seems very, very difficult to me to put an argument that you shouldn't pull the trigger.
If it's going to happen, I can't see it happening before the elections next year. Yeah.
Possibly.
So, Mark, I think within a year or maybe a year's time that we could get so many defections to the Greens and maybe your party and a few of the centrist-type ones to the Lib Dems. Could that trigger a general election if there were, say, 80 people that decided, I'm getting off this sinking ship?
I guess it is possible, but because Labour has such a big majority, Starmer or whoever emerges as leader of the Labour Party next year would have to lose about 70 MPs, one way or another. It could be that some of them go to the Greens, some of them to the Liberals, perhaps one or two even to Reform. If 70 MPs went and the Labour Party really did implode in terms of how many people take the whip in Parliament, 70 is the kind of key number to look at. Then the government will potentially lose a confidence vote. Then you get an early election.
If they get to like 10% in the polls, it really does carry on free fall. Is that a likelihood, do you think?
I'm not sure they'll go as low as 10. At some point, there's a floor. But the question is, who do you think the 70, 80 most rebellious Labour MPs are?
Yeah.
Either those on the left or the
Can
right.
we actually just talk for a moment about the utter humiliation for Sir Keir Starmer of Clive Lewis going on national television and saying that he would happily sit down, have a conversation with his wife about rendering himself unemployed so that Andy Burnham could take his seat just to get rid of Keir Starmer. I mean, that is absolutely... I mean, respectfully, can you imagine how you'd feel? Seriously, if I came here and said, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to have a conversation with Emily, right, and I am going to give up my entire income and any chance of sending my son to private school whatsoever just so that I could be replaced by someone who would get rid of you. Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh,
it's an embarrassment, but I think Clive Lewis is an embarrassment. Well, for me, he's probably the most dislikable MP in Parliament.
He can be dismissed as the lunatic fringe, basically. Can't he?
Well, he didn't pledge allegiance to the king, did he? When he was sworn in.
He is very narcissistic. For somebody to say all of those things, he could be easily dismissed.
But he's offering himself up as a martyr, right? I mean, the problem for Andy Burnham supporters, and if you believe the polls, Burnham is by quite a margin the most publicly popular of the runners and riders. But the problem for Andy Burnham is he's not a member of Parliament. And although Clive Lewis has offered to trigger a by-election, Clive Lewis cannot guarantee how people would vote in that by-election. I just looked at the numbers. I suspect the Green Party would win that seat.
But also Clive Lewis...
So I'm not sure there's a seat that Labour can win anywhere in the country in order to pilot Burnham.
Clive Lewis cannot suggest his successor. No. It's down to the local Labour Party to draw up a list of candidates.
Well, the Labour NEC could impose someone. I mean, they could impose a candidate. This has been done before.
I mean, Keir Starmer...
But I don't think Labour could win a seat anywhere at the moment.
Keir Starmer is literally predicted to lose his own seat.
Yeah.
I mean, so that is how bad the situation's got. But look, watch this. And if I were a betting man, I would expect that some of the front pages tomorrow, but certainly watch the front pages come over the course of this week with more and more of these Labour MPs coming forward and saying we've had enough. And then it's that big budget day, isn't it? This time next week, we will know what's in Rachel Reeves' budget. It'd be nice. I'm not convinced she knows what's in it yet, so we'll have to find out, won't we? But I think we're going to start seeing more and more issues as a result of that.